Well, I hear the U of A bells ringing outside my office, and so it's time to welcome everybody to this very last in our series of Friends of the ASM Collections programs for this year. And we're very, very pleased to have Steve Simpson with us to be talking about new directions and Navajo weaving and other things that he'll be sharing with us. Steve has been an owner of Twin Rocks Trading Post from its inception in the fall of 1989. He is located in Bluff, Utah, and a lot of our friends have actually been there either independently or we've had a number of trips that we've taken up there. It's, for those of you who don't know, a small town that abuts the northern border of the Navajo Nation. For about 30 years, Steve has actively promoted and supported the arts, crafts, culture, and traditions of Indigenous communities in the Colorado Plateau. Yet he's interested in all Southwest cultures, both ancient and contemporary. He's been involved in the contemporary Navajo basket revolution from the early stages, supporting and encouraging luminaries such as Elsie Holiday. And Elsie has a basket in our Woven Through Time exhibit that we acquired through Twin Rocks, Mary Holiday Black and many children, the Betty Rock Johnson family, and many more. Navajo basketry is his first love, and Twin Rocks Trading Post has become widely known as the center of the contemporary Navajo basketry movement. The Trading Post has also been involved in a new rug and blanket weaving styles program and is excited about the weavings currently arriving at Twin Rocks. We look forward to hearing more, and thanks, Steve, for his willingness to present to us today. And we certainly also look forward to a time when ASM can travel back to Bluff for an in-person encounter. Take it away, Steve.
Okay, thank you, Diane. And we certainly look forward to seeing you here at Twin Rocks again. It'll be nice to see real people coming through the door. It's been a strange odyssey over the last year and a half to 2 years. So first of all, I want to welcome everybody to the discussion, and I'm glad you're all here. There we go. And I'm hoping that this will be interesting and educational for all of us. I can't tell you how happy I am to be with you today. It's very exciting for me, and I appreciate being invited. So today our discussion will focus on the relationship between Twin Rocks Trading Post and the artists and designers we've engaged with over the last 32 years of our existence. And I tend to be best at show and tell, so we will do a lot of slides that just show original designs and the artwork that came from the designs. And it's my hope that those of you listening in today will come away with a sense of how the art and artists have evolved over the last 30 years as a result of the collaboration, which I think is extremely important to the overall evolution of any art movement. If we can go to slide 2, please. So here's a photograph of Twin Rocks. And you can see we're in a very scenic place for those of you who haven't been here. We sat on the southern boundary of the currently existing Bears Ears National Monument, which, as many of you know, was established by President Obama, shrunk by President Trump, and reestablished by President Biden. So if you look at the Trading Post and you see the striated background behind us, that is actually the southern boundary. So we literally abutted on our north boundary. Twin Rocks was established in 1989, so we've been around for a while. And from the beginning, it was our hope and our desire to create a business that not only supported our families, but also helped raise the standard of living for the artists with whom we worked, and helped establish new art forms. And frankly, we've been somewhat surprised over the years how this has all come together, but it's been an exceptionally exciting journey, and I'm happy to have been part of it. If we can go to slide 3, please. So in the early stages of the development of Twin Rocks, we kept in mind the history of trading posts on the Navajo reservation and on and just off the Navajo reservation, and how they were involved with the artists and how they developed close relationships. So here's a photograph of Hubble Trading Post, which I think is important because that was certainly one of our models, one of our most important models. And for those of you who've been to Ganado Trading Post, you'll recognize the paintings in the background of a variety of rugs and blankets. Hubble's, again, if you've been there, that's terrific. And if you haven't been, you should certainly make the trip. It's an amazing place. And it is a National Historic Monument, as I understand it. And the old Hubble House with the weavings and the variety of art they have is nothing short of extraordinary. So one of the things we always say at Twin Rocks Trading Post is that we borrow liberally. Some may say stolen, but we prefer to refer to it as borrowing. And knowing what Hubble was doing with his artists and what he was doing with the paintings that you see there in that illustration, we talked with some local artists and worked to get something similar started here. So we've worked where Hubble worked with artists named E.A. Burbank and Bertha Little and a number of other people to do Conte crayon drawings and watercolor paintings. We have worked with artists such as Damien Jim, Susie Bell, who is a graphic artist, Serena Suplee, who is a watercolorist, and attempted to develop a program where we also had paintings somewhat similar that helped us develop new and exciting rug and basket designs. So if we'll go to the next slide, please. So one of the other trading posts that we've studied a great deal is Crystal Trading Post, and the trader who was there, a man named J.B. Moore. J.B. Moore was influential in terms of designing weavings for the commercial market and building a better economy for his local artists. And on the left side of this slide, you'll see what is actually a catalog that Moore developed and distributed that showed the weavings coming from Crystal Trading Post. And you could order them in specific sizes and designs. And I've always found it interesting that there's a large controversy about the storm pattern rug and where it evolved and how it evolved. Some people say it came from a flour sack, but if you look at the J.B. Moore catalog, and if you look at this slide, you'll see a rug in the lower left-hand corner that is amazing, similar to contemporary storm pattern weavings. The other thing Moore did that I've always felt was extremely important was that Moore valued quality and integrity more than profit. And so his influence on Navajo weaving was certainly profound and is clearly felt to this day. He's credited with originating the original Two Gray Hills and Tisnaspas patterns, and as I mentioned, very likely the storm pattern as well. So if we'll go to slide 5, please. So in this area, we have a deep tradition of weaving. The ancient people wove sandals, similar to what you see in the upper left-hand corner. and a variety of baskets used for storing, sifting, and any number of other uses. So we can go to the next slide, please. So this is a photograph of a contemporary pitch basket, which originally would have been used for storing water. It's a very loosely woven vessel that's then covered in pine pitch, so it's waterproof. Historians typically agree that there were three types of Navajo baskets. There's this particular water jug, and I've seen them all the way from small ones to very extremely large ones. Again, the reason was that the utility was water storage. There's the Navajo ceremonial basket, which covers two different types: the wedding basket, or baskets used in wedding ceremonies, and then what is commonly referred to as just the ceremonial basket, which is used in a variety of healing ceremonies. And then there's a third type, which I've searched for years and years to find and never turned up an example, and that's a twined peach basket. So as some of you will know, before the Long Walk and before the Navajo people were rounded up by Kit Carson, in Canyon de Chelly, there were great peach orchards, and they refer to them as, the Navajo people referred to apples and other fruits as peaches. So peach is generally it's a broader term than just what we typically think of. But anyway, the baskets associated with that were larger gathering baskets. But again, I've never seen anything associated with the Navajo style of weaving. The closest I came was at Acoma one time, where I saw something that was historically similar, but it was woven at Acoma. We'll go to slide 7, please. And that's the traditional ceremonial basket, which is generally a standard design. The story I liked best was told to me by a Navajo woman maybe 25 or 30 years ago. And that is that the center of the basket, where it starts, represents our emergence into this world. And then as you coil out, so that the basketry is representative of sort of a map of your life. And as you coil out in the early stages, you realize that, or you see that everything is white. And then you get to the area where you begin to see some of the dark stitching. And that represents your maybe your teenage years or your early 20s, where you begin to see some of the challenges of life. Some might say the darkness, the adversarial nature of life. And you see for some time that grows, starts out relatively narrow and then grows until you hit the red rings, which are often referred to as blood rings. And they represent family, children, mixing your blood with the blood of your spouse. And then as you grow beyond that, you see how the black begins to dissipate. And that represents knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that these things, these difficulties in life can all be managed with hard work and diligence. And then you get to that outer ring, which is once again all white. And that's supposed to be the spirit world, where everything is good and right. And then you see the line coming out to the upper left-hand corner. That's a spirit line, which represents no matter where you are in that progression, there's always a pathway to the light. So great story. There are a lot of similar story, or there are stories that are somewhat more simple than that, where the black in the outer perimeter represents mountains, and the white represents clouds, and again, the red represents the blood rings. So there is a diversity of stories associated with the Navajo basketry, but one thing we know for sure is that it is one of the foundations or one of the cornerstones of Navajo life and existence, because it is used in literally all the healing ceremonies. It's used in wedding ceremonies and almost every aspect of life. Many Navajo people believe that if you put your jewelry, for example, if you store it in a basket, then it multiplies and you become wealthier, or at least have more jewelry. And if you put a sheep fetish in there, for example, your flocks will grow. So it's very important. Next slide, please. Now, this is a photograph of the hands of Mary Holiday Black. And Mary is the matriarch of the contemporary Navajo basketry movement. She received in 1995 a fellowship from the from the National Endowment of the Arts. And I believe she was the first Navajo to receive that award. Let's go to the next slide, please. So if you haven't seen this book, Weaving a Revolution, which was published by the Natural History Museum of Utah, it's certainly worth a look. It chronicles the contemporary Navajo basketry movement and shows many, many examples of the work done by the local Navajo artists. Elsie Holiday, as we mentioned, Mary Holiday Black, all of Mary's children, Betty Rock Johnson and her children, Joanne Johnson, Chris Johnson, Jean Johnson, and all of them have done extraordinary work. The basket shown, pictured on the front of this was woven by Joanne Johnson, and it's a representation of Monument Valley and the mittens. Next slide, please. So the seeds of this contemporary movement were actually sown in a couple of places before Twin Rocks was established. There was a woman named Virginia Smith at Ojeto Trading Post who encouraged weavers to just do something a little bit different from the traditional ceremonial basket. And then my brother Barry and my father Duke at Blue Mountain Trading Post was doing the same thing with some of the local Ute, the Ute basket weavers. And that sort of merged when Twin Rocks Trading Post was opened in 1989. And Barry and I, who worked together for over 30 years until his recent retirement, basically made the commitment that we would buy all the Navajo baskets we could possibly afford until we wound up in bankruptcy, if that were to happen. And we were fortunate that it stimulated just an amazing movement. In the early 1990s, we hired a young Navajo graphic artist named Damien Jim. And he came to work with his Apple computer and began to produce visual art to help the weavers sort of begin to explore a whole variety of different styles of weaving. If we can go to the next slide, please. So the next several slides we have on the left side, Damien's original design. And you can see this is the horse, this progression represents the horse basket design. So you have common elements of the ceremonial basket, but representations of horse heads, which are supposed to illustrate the horses of Jonah A, the bearer of the sun. So you have the very important symbolism of Navajo ceremonial baskets, and also the important symbolism of Jonah A, who is the father of the hero twins, Monster Slayer and Born for Water, who were born of an illicit relationship between Jonah A and Changing Woman. Sometimes the stories represent the hero twins are the offspring of Changing Woman, who is also Mother Earth, and White Shell Woman. There's a little diversity of opinion on how that all shakes out. In any case, moving to the right, you see Mary Holiday Black with a basket that is very similar to Damien's original design. And then interestingly, moving to the left, you see Mary's daughter, Lorraine, who is an exceptional weaver, who has taken that design and exploded it. So you have you have Damien's design in the center, and then you have a representation of Jonah A going around that original design in the form of a yay. And then all of Jonah A's horses around the outer perimeter. And it's said that Jonah A's horses are of a variety of types. So if it's gray and overcast outside, he's very likely riding one of his gray horses. And if it's bright and sunny, he's riding one of his yellow horses. So depending on what the type of day you see, then you know what type of horse Jonah A is riding on that at that particular moment. Let's go to the next slide, please. Here's another design where Damien was focusing on the eagle way. And in his original design, you see the eagle as the primary design motif. And then you see people associated with the eagle or the eagle way, and then corn and eagle and some of the characters associated with that particular story. And then moving over to the right a bit, you see Peggy Black with her rendition of Damien's design. And the interesting thing is that Peggy has basically taken Damien's design literally. You see the common elements. She's used a little bit of her own inspiration, but also worked within some of the limitations of the basket weaving format. And then going to the right, again, you see this really interesting evolution where Peggy has then completely changed the design, but for the eagle motif. So you see people, but instead of being static, as they are in Damien's design and in the initial basket, they're dancing. And then in the center, you have sort of a patriotic theme with the stars and stripes. And that's what I find most interesting about what's happening, what has happened and what still happens in the contemporary movement is you never know what the outgrowth is going to be. So let's go to the next slide, please. And again, here's an illustration of exactly that point. You see Damien's design on the left-hand side, and that's representative of shiprock. And then we have a little bit of noise from our construction workers. And then you see Joanne's landscape basket, which is focusing on Monument Valley. So she's taken the shiprock and moved it over into Monument Valley. But you see some of the similar shading and the night sky and the stars in the night, and then this extremely powerful moon. And then moving over to the right, there's Joanne very proudly displaying another evolution. And again, you see common themes. There's the moon and the night sky, but those are representations of six-shooter peaks in Canyonlands. And again, one of the more interesting aspects of that is the design Joanne is displaying on the right-hand side is actually one that was ordered by a gentleman who was a park ranger in Canyonlands. And he's a very avid rock climber and quite often climbs in that area. So he wanted to do something that would remind him of Canyonlands. And Joanne designed the six-shooter peak basket, which the collector just absolutely was crazy about. So let's go to the next one, please. Now, this is an interesting slide, which we've designated as a Tree of Life basket. it actually, Damien's original design actually focused on the blessing way, which is the root of many other ceremonies. So his concept was that, as you see in the bottom, there are the roots combining that grow up into the trunk, and the trunk of the basket represents the blessing way. And then all of the other ceremonies, the healing ceremonies and blessing ceremonies that come from the from that basic ceremony. And then you see Elsie Holiday there, who has changed the basic colors, shifted from white to black and white. And then again, moving or growing, she then did something similar with an explosion of colors. So one of the things I'm most proud of at Twin Rocks is, or one of the things we've really worked hard to cultivate, is this sort of artistic freedom. And we generally never say, do this, do this in terms of design or basket weaving or rug weaving. We simply say, look, this is kind of interesting. What do you think about this? And then if you're interested, take it and do what you want. And that sort of acting as a catalyst has generally been, in my opinion, in any case, really successful, because we've seen so many unusual designs grow out of this particular collaborative effort. Let's go to the next slide, please. So, as I mentioned, some of the early influences grew out of Damien's designs. And Damien actually left Twin Rocks Trading Post, I don't know, 10, maybe 15 years ago, to go out and do his own thing. And he's become very successful. He lives in the Phoenix area and has a regular day job, but does all sorts of other artistic activities. And again, has grown into a very important artist in his own right. So let's go on to the next slide, please. Now, here are a couple baskets that I think are very interesting for very different reasons. The basket on the left is a design that Peggy originated herself. The center is supposed to represent a chrysalis or a cocoon, and then that explosion results in really terrific butterflies that are on the outer perimeter. And there are influences that grow out of the work that Damien was doing and some of the work that Twin Rocks has done. But for the most part, that is exclusively Peggy's own, her own concept, her own design. And then the Placing the Stars basket on the right-hand side has actually become, interestingly, one of the sort of foundational baskets of the contemporary movement, of the contemporary revolution. And that shows First Man and Coyote placing the stars in the sky. And the story goes that First Man was busily placing the stars in the sky when Coyote, the trickster, came wandering by and wanted to get involved. And First Man, knowing Coyote's reputation, asked that he just sort of stay away. But Coyote was persistent. So First Man gave Coyote some red stars, which you see in the basket. There's one in the sort of the lower left-hand corner or lower left-hand round, and then one in the upper right-hand portion of the basket. And Coyote placed them in the sky and then became anxious that things were not progressing quite as fast as he would like. So he took the buckskin where the stars were all laid out on and shook it, blew the stars up into the sky. So that's why we have the Milky Way. And you see in the lighter portion of the basket, there are some recognizable constellations. And then sort of the chaos of Coyote in the black portion, or again, representing the Milky Way. So and that was a design that was originated by Barry, my brother, and Damien in the early stages of the contemporary movement. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. So on the left-hand side, one of the things I am most interested in is some of the political statements that come out of baskets. So the two baskets on the left, the black and the white, represent the Navajo Long Walk. And the black represents, you'll see the people are going down into the center of the basket or down into the abyss. And that represents the Navajo people being gathered up by Kit Carson and taken to Fort Sumner or Bosque Redondo. And that was a very dark time in their lives. So Peggy has represented that in the form of a black basket. And then the white basket, you'll see that the people are actually coming out of the center of the basket, and it's light, and so they're returning to their homeland. That was a design that was worked out and took a great deal of effort between between Peggy and Damien, and I recall that they worked on a number of different designs that just didn't seem to work out for either of them, and then they struck this particular motif, and Peggy seemed very happy with that. And politically, it's a very strong, very powerful message associated with those baskets. Then over on the right, this again is one of Peggy's original designs. And you can see in the center, there's sort of an Oriental optical art kind of swirl. And you see in these baskets, this confluence of different cultures. You know, the influence of Damien, because Damien actually designed the hummingbird motif that's in there. And then Peggy took, you know, a piece from what Damien was doing, a piece from Oriental optical art, and then blended this sort of kind of Apache star looking border and came up with an extremely beautiful basket. And that's where I think the collaboration is most interesting and most effective is when everything sort of comes together. And I always view it sort of as a watershed where you have a trickle coming down here and a trickle coming down there that eventually turns into a little stream. And as in the case of the contemporary Navajo basketry movement, kind of became a raging river. So let's go to the next slide, please. So here's Joanne Johnson. And the basket on the left is one that was recently woven. And it looks a bit like the Real Salt Lake soccer team logo. And I think Joanne is a fan of soccer, so that may be the influence there. And then the one on the right is cats, because Joanne says they have a lot of cats around the house. So she's taken the ceremonial basket design and woven in the kitty motif and made it a really beautiful basket. Okay, let's go to the next one, please. And this is Joanne's brother, Chris. And Chris does really extraordinary baskets. And Chris almost always uses his original designs. He is a bit of a loner. He does amazing work. His baskets are wildly tight and extremely well woven. But then if you go to the basket on the right, you see the hummingbird motif that he's taken and sort of integrated into one of his original designs. So again, I think you see these different influences beginning to weave together. Next slide, please. Now, here is, this is one of the most extraordinary baskets I've seen in the 30 years over 30 years we've been at Twin Rocks. And this is Elsie Holiday, who is, along with Mary Holiday Black, you know, one of the two most important, influential contemporary Navajo basket weavers. And this is a rendition of Hunger Monster. So when the Hero Twins slew all of the monsters that were terrorizing the Navajo people, they left 4. And there's a little bit of controversy over just exactly what 4 there were. Most say hunger, which is represented here, death, cold, and I've forgotten the other ones. Pardon me. But in any case, Elsie chose to represent the hunger monster here. And what I find most interesting about this basket is the eyes are really captivating, but you can sort of see the nose is a little bit amorphous, and then the mouth is really just a line to represent hunger and starvation. So anyway, that's a truly amazing basket, and Elsie is a truly amazing weaver. All right, let's go on to the next, please. So a few more of Elsie's designs. The one on the left representing a feather bustle that you would see on a powwow dancer. So you see the variety of or the feathers going around the centerpiece. And the one on the right is the Bears Ears basket, and I referenced Bears Ears National Monument a while back. And there's a very funny story about this. One of the collectors we know very well came in, and he was a good friend of Senator Orrin Hatch, who was an extremely strong opponent of the Bears Ears National Monument and fought hard to have it disestablished. So this individual actually bought the basket and gave it to Senator Hatch, who then put it up in his office, not knowing that it had that it was woven to commemorate and celebrate the establishment of Bears Ears National Monument. So again, where sometimes we think that the artwork is just artistic, in many cases there is a political slant to it as well. Okay, let's go on to the next one, please. These baskets sort of indicate the different influences. So on the left, you have the influence of Cubism, and on the right, you can see the influence of Southern Arizona Pima culture, the 5-petal squash blossom. And then if you look carefully, you can see that's overlain with a turtle basket design. Okay, let's go on to the next slide, please. Couple more baskets that are woven by Elsie Holiday that just show the depth of her talent. The horse with the red mane on the left, and then the Navajo song and dance basket on the right. And the song and dance basket, interestingly, was influenced by a wooden box done by one of the local folk artists. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so the trading post, Twin Rocks Trading Post, has been most well known for the Navajo basketry movement, but we have also worked on different projects and are moving in. We try to move the artists in as many new directions as possible. So again, their ability to raise their standard of living is improved, and then of course we're able to offer new and interesting works of art. So let's go to the next slide, please. So one of the things we're working on now is a series of abstract black and white baskets, and these are referencing a couple of them. On the left, you have the black hole basket, which is actually inspired by my middle child, who's an astrophysicist. And then the boomerang basket on the right, which was designed and executed by Alicia Nelson. And the idea is that just to explore different styles. So again, this particular movement is focusing on just abstract black and white weavings. So let's go to the next one, please. So a few more, the Dene diamond basket on the left, and then one of my favorites, which is the Splat Basket, which is nothing more than just sort of representative of a splat of ink or a splat of paint, just completely and absolutely abstract. Next slide, please. So I mentioned early on that we have worked with a number of artists, and we've cribbed from what Don Lorenzo Hubble was doing in the late 1800s or early 1900s at Ganado. So these rugs and tapestries and blankets represent some of the work that has come out of that particular collaboration. So let's go to the next slide, please. So on the left, you see the original design, which is done with colored pencils. And basically, the design was just taking certain elements of historic Navajo weavings, in this case, the Spider Woman cross, exploding it, and then using a fragmented sort of stained glass Moki striped design, again, influenced by what Hubble was doing at Ganado Trading Post. And then on the right-hand side, you see the actual weaving that grew out of it. And this weaving is interesting because if you look on the left-hand side of it, you see that the artist is really sort of struggling to get that fragmented element right. And then as she moves up the weaving, it gets better and better and better. So you can actually see the evolution of the technique growing in this blanket. Let's go to the next, please. And here's a watercolor on the left by Serena Suplee. Serena is extremely fond of the Grand Canyon. So this is a representation of Grand Canyon with the Green River, the green colored river flowing in the center, and then the steep canyons. And on the right-hand side, you see Eleanor Yazzi's execution of it, which is somewhat literal. Okay, let's go to the next one, please. This is on the left-hand side, a representation of sacred male and female sacred corn. And then on the right-hand side, you see the rug that was woven, that was influenced by that. Okay, let's go to the next, please. Here's another Serena Suplee watercolor with the rug that was woven by Eleanor Yazzie as a result of that. Okay, and those, of course, are the mittens from Monument Valley. And then Serena's influence, I guess, is barcodes, maybe. So let's go on, please. Now, this is a weaving I find truly interesting, and maybe that's because we designed it here at the Trading Post. It's called the Wedding Rug, and you can see Luana So holding up the original weaving. So what we did here is we just took, we wanted to focus on the union of people who were in love. So we took the ceremonial basket design, which is what's in the outer border. And you can see the consistency between ceremonial baskets or wedding baskets and that particular design, including the spirit line that's in the left center. And then a male and a female yay, the male represented by the more rounded head and the female represented by the rectangular head, and then corn in the center for fertility, regeneration from year to year. And we've had people buy these to celebrate the union of their children or anniversaries and that sort of thing. Anyway, it's a design that really appeals to me. And it was designed by a woman named Teresa Brezhnev, who lives here in Bluff. And what the design is really just taken from very standard cultural imagery, the corn, the male and female yay, and then the ceremonial basket. Let's go to the next one, please. So I think this is our last slide. And the point of this is just to, the point of the entire discussion was that I was hoping to illustrate just how, got a little bit of construction noise, how interesting the art can develop if you have people who have open minds and who are willing to collaborate and not get hung up by some of the historic hurdles associated with just getting together and free associating. So one of the things we're doing, I think, let's go to the next slide. And okay, that's the last slide. So one of the things we've done now, which I think is a bit unusual, but actually is probably going to turn out to be very interesting, is that we have collaborated with some of the other trading posts to do innovative work. So we are working closely with Tisnaspas Trading Post and with Tisnaspas in Tisnaspas, Arizona, of course, and Toatan Gallery in Durango. They have access to some extremely good weavers that I don't have access to, and so we're working together on designs and collaborating. So I talk by telephone, or I go see Jackson or John from time to time, and we just sort of, again, free associate and explore how we can help move the art in new directions.